I'm Heather Ferguson, and you have found a Sonar Moment. The Sonar Moment, a monthly interview with CEOs from the Pacific Northwest. We're here in the beautiful Alex Goulden Hall in Victoria, Canada, and with me today is Jane Butler McGregor, CEO, the Victoria Conservatory of Music, and the organization that owns Alex Goulden Hall. Jane, thank you so much for coming in.
Oh, well, Heather, thanks for asking me. I'm delighted.
And I should say, full disclosure, I am on the board of the VCM, and it's one of the reasons that I was here and happened to see the beautiful lighting and thought, oh, what a great location this would be. How many students are in the conservatory?
Right now, about 1,800, and that includes our community school students as well as our professional school students. And then on top of that, though, we also have a world-class music therapy program, and that music therapy program also reaches about another 1,600 people in our community.
And you also have the Collegium, too?
Yeah, Collegium is a program within the conservatory that was created for students, gifted students.
Yeah. It really is a going concern. That's one of the things I've always been amazed about, is just how many different things, all musically related and all interconnected, that the conservatory's got. It's come through a bit of difficulty in the last few years, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's got an interesting history. And actually, back in the year 2000, a decision was made to purchase this beautiful building that we're now housed in. And the purchase was made, and a capital campaign was launched to raise the money to purchase the building, and then to refurbish it into a school of music. Unfortunately, though, the due consideration hadn't been given to the cost of operating an organization, a small organization, in a building of this size. And once they moved in 2000, as those years went by, they just continued to operate with enormous deficits. So by the time we got involved in 2008, the conservatory had acquired about $2.2 million worth of debt, a $1 million mortgage, and then $1.2 million of accumulated deficit.
Which is tough if it's, an annual revenue of a little over $3 million.
Well, no, our revenues at the time in 2008 were about $3.8 million. Today they're about $4.2 million. And but it obviously required a transformation and a turnaround. We had moved up. We were right against our credit line of $750,000, and with nowhere to turn. And that's when we came in. I was asked by members of this community to come in to see if there was anything we could do to save the organization. So I was happy to do that. I was happy to give it a try, is what I should say. And it's been a real journey, Heather. And 4 years later, I'm so happy to report that last year we eradicated totally eliminated and eradicated the accumulated deficit, and had reduced our mortgage from $1 million to $300,000.
This is something that virtually every organization goes through when it's had a long history. There are always bumps and ups and downs. Tell me about you and leading the organization when you first came in, and just what you felt was really needed. How did you get started on such a monumental task?
Yeah, and it was a monumental task, and it took a while to determine sort of the strategy or the direction forward, because I certainly believed, certainly in the first couple months, I had to get to understand and know the organization and what its challenges were, other than just financial. So that took some time, and that was sort of the period I call my due diligence period, right? And then basically I looked at the transformation as under the lens of a business model. You have to clean up what you've got by, number one, reducing costs, reducing expenses, and increasing earned and contributed revenue. It basically boils down to what you do in any business.
But the devil's in the details. How do you do that?
Well, first of all, I think one of the key factors for me was building a team of competent people. As you can appreciate, in an organization that has been troubled for a number of years, there are some competencies that are lacking within the organization, and it certainly meant that we had to buoy those up and to start to bring into the organization people who had the competencies that could help propel us forward.
And what, coming into the organization in 2008, and then going through the strategic planning process, what did you personally learn? How did it change you?
I think how did it change me? That's a very good question. I think that it reinforced for me that some of the things that you may question about your own style or your own way of doing things works, and then that it worked, and that you have more confidence in sort of your own intuition and your own ability to determine the right decisions at the time.
It's sort of a gut feel in a way. I know I've talked to a number of leaders and you as well about just following your gut and just what seems right. You also talked about tempering that with the facts, and I guess the stakeholder relations was really part of that.
Yeah, I believe anyway that when you approach a problem or a situation, that you try and get as much information and factual information as you can. And then, quite honestly, once you have that in front of you, some of it for me is instinct based on the question, what is the best thing? What is the best thing for this organization? That decision may not be something that I personally necessarily would want. It may not be something that the person sitting across from me would want, but we have to always ask ourselves, what is the best thing for this organization at this moment in time? And then the answer becomes apparent, right? And it's a bit of an intuitive process, I have to admit.
And I know you worked for Jimmy Pattison.
Yes, I did.
One of Canada's top entrepreneurs, certainly one of the most well-known. Just what lessons did you learn from him in leadership that you were able to bring to nonprofits that you've worked with?
Well, of course, Jimmy is the quintessential entrepreneur, right? I mean, he's brilliant. And I think, too, one of the things I learned, which I even spoke to earlier, was always giving yourself time to do your due diligence. And also, too, though, to never close the door on opportunity. One of the things that I saw so often and was so involved in is, you can be going down a path and another opportunity presents itself elsewhere. It doesn't, you can still carry on down a path, but nothing says that you shouldn't be investigating something else that comes at you sideways. Because you just never know whether or not that opportunity will fit into what the objectives and goals are of the organization, or whether it's just something that you can put in your back pocket for something down the road and a few years later. But he's a master, obviously, at creating and building.
It's a kind of a genuine curiosity about life and about opportunity and about things that makes you always be looking around the corner to see what else is there, but still stay focused.
Yeah, exactly. And his focus has always been to grow and build his company, and that is exactly what he's done.
Where do you see the Conservatory going, especially now that you're not out of the woods, but certainly...
We've stabilized. I call it stabilizing. I think we've stabilized. I don't think we have yet reached a state of total sustainability. And having said that, in our next 3-year plan, which sort of speaks to that, I think that there is still incredible opportunity in the growth of earned revenue, primarily through the establishment of satellite locations and new programs. Classical training will always be at the core of everything we do at the Conservatory of Music. But we recognize that there is a great need in this community for the study of contemporary music, primarily with a younger population.
Well, it's such a vibrant musical place, Victoria, isn't it?
It certainly is.
Yeah.
It's
and also a destination for so many musicians.
you know, and we're pleased about that, and
Yeah.
it's grown. It's you know, it is growing, and it has, as I mentioned earlier, great growth potential, which the next 3 years is hopefully going to lead us to.
Yeah. Jane, thank you so much for coming. This has been a wonderful, wonderful interview.
Well, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here in our own hall.
Oh,
having this
I
interview,
thought
so
you might
thank
enjoy
you.
that.